In my eating disorder career, I've had 9 patients die, which is overwhelming and obviously emotionally taxing. I stepped away. I still work with eating disorders, but I was like in the thick of it for an entire decade. And in that decade, I lost 9 patients. I was a competitive weightlifter, so I broke all the state American records and I went to Worlds when I was 15. I trained twice a day for months. I cut weight. I did all the things. I got to Worlds and I was disqualified over like a simple uniform rule, which was devastating for me. A truly anorexic patient is the most disciplined individual you will ever meet in your entire life. Just ridiculous amounts of discipline. There's nobody to help me in that moment of need. That's when I decided.
Talk about a lady that I think her schedule is busier than mine, because it was pulling teeth to get this redhead on this episode with me. But we have so much in common, and I was trying to figure out, I think we met in 2020 through a mutual friend. And you have been with us ever since. And we both have 2 daughters. Obviously, we're both redhead. We've gone both through melanoma. I've scares, and you continue to go through your scares with that. But we have so much in common, and it is an honor to finally get you scheduled and on the books. Miss Crystal, I told her before we started I wasn't saying her last name, so she can tell all you guys her last name correctly.
That's 2 Czech last names, Crystal Zabka-Belsky. So my maiden and my married. It's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful. Yes. Well, thank you for joining the Rebel Roots today. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. And I know it's amazing. I love the podcast because I know what I know, right? But then every time I have these conversations with people that I think I really know, I find out so many tidbits of information that I had no idea. So I'm excited to dive into yours, because I know a little bit of your background, but not the full details of when we met. I know from when we met forward. But my first question that I love to ask my guests is that think back. I always think that the universe gives us the signs of where we're going to end up in our life, right? And it's interesting that if you could go back to, like, say 8, 10 years old, can you look back and go, oh yeah, I should have saw this career path coming, or where you're at currently in your life? Like, yeah, it was all the signs were there. So did you have signs growing up to be where you are today?
It's interesting you picked the age of 8, because I was 8 years old and my dad died when I was little. So my dad had a terminal illness. He was born with multiple holes in his heart. And so he was waiting for a heart and lung transplant. But in the 80s, that was super experimental. You had to be in pretty pristine health to get a heart transplant. And he was not. He wasn't well. So I lost my dad when I was 8 years old. My mom, interestingly, my mom, my grandma, my great grandma, and her mom, so my great-great-grandma, all became widowed at the age of 31. It's wild. And so anyway, I didn't have any males in my life. It was all grandmas and moms. So that was very interesting. So I think I just saw my mom as a hustler. She was a single mom and had to raise my brother and I. So I think I knew at that time I was probably going to be a hustler, because I didn't know any different. I knew nothing but women take the reins and make it happen and hustle. So I always tease my husband when I was 31, that entire year, I would let him know, now, this is not your year. Everyone has been widowed at the age of 31. So I suggest you behave for the next 12 months. But I would say that was a pivotal moment for me, obviously, in my life, a difficult pivotal moment, but I think I grew up super fast. And in that moment, I think watching my mom do everything she had to do to hustle, to take care of my brother and I knew one day I had to do something great, because she worked way too hard for me not to, because I watched her kind of struggle. So that was probably one of my most pivotal moment as a kid.
And I didn't really say in the beginning, but you are currently a dietitian, and that's what you do for us, is that you kind of help us with all the meals and the education. There's so much education that you provide to our owners, to our customers, to Don and I, with that. Did you always have like food related passion when you grew up? Were you cooking in the kitchen or no?
So both of my grandmas, my dad's mom, again, going back to the strong women in my life, My dad's mom was the school cook. And so we were a K through 12 in one building. So she was the cook in my school my entire childhood, all through graduation. So she was always like food was her love language. My mom's mom did catering. So both grandmas were like heavy food, that was their love language. So that for sure, I think shaped kind of where I am. I've also been an athlete my entire life. So working in more performance nutrition came from when I was 15, you're not going to believe, you'll all probably like this actually, Evonne. I was a competitive weightlifter. So I broke all the state American records and I went to Worlds when I was 15. I trained twice a day for months. I cut weight. I did all the things. I got to Worlds and I was disqualified over like a simple like uniform rule, which was devastating for me. It was like such a devastating moment. I felt like I had failed everybody. But in that moment, I think I felt the need to create an identity and prove myself and my value. And so I became so involved in training and, nutrition and all the things that I ended up with 5 stress fractures. So I was kind of the picture of female athlete triad. And not having any resources to get through that, I had to kind of muscle through that on my own. I decided in that moment, like my love of food, and then I wanted to kind of, again, be very independent and successful as a woman. And then there was nobody to help me in that moment of need. That's when I decided, you know what, I'm going to go into this field of like wellness, nutrition, exercise. So from the age of 15, I've never wavered. I took that path and I've stayed on that path the entire time.
And you've worked with, I think when we met, you were working with App State. Was that
UNCW?
UNCW, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you've worked with some pretty big athletes along the way. Go into.
I have. So,
guess you graduate. Where did you go from graduation with the career first? Because
yep. I graduated from the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and I did research with female athletes and eating disorders. So I developed an eating disorder screening instrument at Nebraska. And then from there, I was the director of an eating disorder program for about 10 years. And I worked, I guess it's interesting. I never thought I would work in this particular field, but I was the nutrition therapist at a drug and alcohol treatment program for 10 years. So kind of everyone in that particular program was likely a felon and was dual diagnosis with mental health, drug and alcohol condition. That probably laid the foundation for me to be more successful in my career than many other things because these people were kind of rock bottom. They struggled. And I think I identified with them because I came from a life of struggle as a kid, a lot of adversity and difficulty. So that's been one of actually the most fulfilling gigs I ever had was working with drug and alcohol treatment. But from there, then I kind of spread my wings and started to work more in performance nutrition. So I've worked in the NBA, the NFL, different college programs, building college programs. I've had some Team USA athletes as well, which has been exciting. Again, I'll say even in the sports realm, I know everybody wants to work with the biggest name athlete. For me, the underdogs are always my favorite because again, I like to work with people that have had struggle. They're more receptive to help. They're more invested when you're helping them. And then the outcome is just so much more fulfilling for me. So I don't turn away the big name athletes, but I really am fulfilled by working with the underdog for sure.
No, I love that. And, everyone wants to work with the big dogs and they forget about the underdogs. And that's where I feel like you can mentor them so much. You get them when they're at the very beginning and probably they have egos, but not as big as what another big name would have. And yeah, I could totally see that your work is so much more fulfilling there because they're probably absorbing all the information that you're giving them, Go to this is just a question. And because obviously I just did the tech talk on childhood obesity and, with that, there was, I kind of quoted the statistics about eating disorders and in your work, what do you find is the biggest cause of, I guess, the eating disorders? Is there one thing that you could put in there that you were you can? Okay.
Yeah, I would say across the board. So I've worked with eating disorders now for over 2 decades. So again, that's where my research was. I ran a program. I work with eating disorders and a lot of athletes. And even myself falling into that female athlete triad trap, almost always it's a control issue. And so for me as a kid, I lost control of many things. I lost my dad. My mom was struggling. I was trying so hard to be successful. Then I went to this world competition and failed at a world stage in front of everybody. After my hometown had, raised all this money for me, I was embarrassed. I felt like a failure. So I felt the need to like over control something. And so I over controlled my training and my weight and all of those things to try and prove something. I don't know what I was trying to prove, but I recognize that. And so now in working with anyone that has an eating disorder, it's almost always a control issue. And so it could be the truly anorexic patients I work with. It is like hyper control. It's the most, a truly anorexic patient is the most disciplined individual you will ever meet in your entire life. I mean, just ridiculous amounts of discipline. But even for someone suffering from bulimia or binge eating disorder, it's a lack of control. So it's kind of everything else in the world is controlled. And so they get to control that they're not controlled, if that makes sense in that realm. So it's almost always a control issue. So I think people falsely believe that it's, they want to weigh X or they want to be this skinny or they want to look a particular way. And that's usually wrapped up in it. But almost always it's related to the lack of or need to control something.
I can totally see that. And like you said, and they do have more discipline than anybody because, I mean, to not eat food or to limit yourself to that like little quantity of food takes so much willpower to do that. And obviously we always look at, I think from the outside is like, if you have that much willpower, why are you not doing it in other areas of your life? But yeah, it's, I always think it's, with weight is such a controversial thing because everyone has an opinion. Whether you feel good at, 100 pounds versus if you felt good at 190 pounds, it's just everyone feels like they get to have an opinion about that. Right. And I know you've sent me some things once in a while because you kind of went back and forth with that. And why do you think so many people get invested in the weight conversations with other people?
I think a lot of it is the fear of judgment. We all feel like we need to fit into a particular mold. And so, if you're feeling insecure in a particular area, if you can fine tune your appearance or you can appear in a particular way, I always say everyone is struggling in the background. So I don't know that there's a person in the world that doesn't have some struggle happening. So I'm sure you've seen that, like, be kind. You never know what's happening for somebody in their life. But I think everyone has something going on. And so if you can put on a particular, appearance, a lot of times it feels like you have it together. So I think a lot of it is maybe covering up other insecurities or other struggles. It's the fear of judgment, and face it, we all have fear of judgment on one level or another. Keeping up with the Joneses. So, if someone, I feel like we have this conversation all the time. So you and I are not far apart in age. And so I know this is a conversation that your friends are probably having as well, but like the Botox, lip injections, cheek fillers, all the things. I feel like when one mom does it, the next mom does it, the next one does it. And it's like this behavioral contagion. So I think sometimes that's part of it as well. Like if she's dieting, I should probably diet. If she lost weight, I should probably lose weight. So I just think a lot of it is probably behavioral contagion as well. And I'm seeing that like in my age, in my era right now, everybody's doing all the things. I swear.
Sorry, I'm not going to give up Botox at all. I know we have this conversation like, cause you've never done Botox, right?
I haven't. No. So if you see wrinkles, just mind your business.
Give it 10 more years. But, I just think too, I didn't know where this conversation go, but I want to stick here for just a little bit because like GLP is a hot topic right now. And the one thing that I love about you is that you don't have the traditional dietitian, because probably when we first met, I was like, look, I don't like dietitians.
You told me that straight up.
You're crazy. You're crazy. Like you want to do these plans that no one can ever follow. And there's 600 ingredients on one diet plan, but you're not that type. You want things to work. And so you simplify it and you give grace to some, like things that you're like, yeah, like I know sodium is always a big topic for us and, some other things. You're like, yeah, no, that's not your biggest issue. You're like, here's where we need to start. And so I love your concept with that. So give me kind of your opinion on the GLP craze right at the moment.
Yeah. Oh boy, it's such a hot topic. It's all over the place. And I have friends and family that have used it. Some people are all in, some all out. I mean, so GLP, was originally developed for more so a diabetic patient that is maybe out of control in terms of blood sugar management. So I think there's a place for them, obviously for like medically unstable people. I do think it's obviously an effective medication. So people use it. It works for sure. People are losing weight. I think if it's utilized in such a way alongside a dietitian and with, some good change in behavior, it can be a little bit of training wheels and some assistance to gain some momentum with weight loss. Unfortunately, what I see is a lot of people use it, don't change their eating patterns, and then it becomes too expensive, or they've kind of tapped out their long-term use of it, and then they gain it all back plus some, and the behaviors haven't changed. So it's kind of like any other, almost crash diet, in that it's not teaching any, long-term eating patterns. So do I think it can be part of a healthy weight loss journey? It can be, if it's done properly and if it's alongside some other learning opportunities. And that's what I know, honestly, for Clean Eats, give you a little shout out here with Clean Eats, that one of the best things is that our meals are teaching tools. So they're teaching portions visually. They're teaching portions from when you're eating them. You're identifying stopping points. So alongside something like that has a teaching tool, I think it can be fine. But I will tell you, I see so many patients who come back to me and they're like, well, I tried GLP-1, did it for 6 months, lost 75 pounds, and now I've gained back 80. And then it's just this vicious cycle for them. So it's like a double-headed monster. It kind of depends which direction people go.
And that's why I love you, because I feel the exact same way. I just remember someone telling me one time, a long time ago, that they had won one of our challenges, and they came up to us and they're like, but I cheated. And I was like, you cheated? And they're like, well, I actually I don't even know what it was. It was like an enhancement, And I was like, I don't view it as cheating. I view it as that it was a tool that helped you become motivated or disciplined enough that it changed your exercise and it changed your eating habits, and if all of us need just a little bit of extra encouragement, and if that comes in a drug form or as kind of a surgery or something like that, then as long as you take that and move forward with that into better lifestyle, I don't view it as cheating in this world. But I know some people have different opinions of that, but I really don't.
I don't think so much as cheating. My concern is always the longevity of it. Have you lost weight in such a fast way that you've now compromised muscle, and then you didn't learn how to, either maintain or restore that muscle? So I think play the tape all the way through. 1 year from now, is this going to be where you want to land? So yeah, I'm that person that will say, have we found a stopping point yet? I see it was. I actually just had a friend recently who's using GLP-1. I hadn't seen her in 6 months. And I saw her and I was like, you look great. And then I was like, have you found a stopping point? It's time. I'm going to be the one to tell you. Somebody needs to tell you. I think people ride that momentum of weight loss. It feels good. The momentum feels good, right? And so sometimes it's almost like a high from the weight loss, but we forget that there has to be a stopping point. There can be too much of a good thing. And that's probably another problem with it, is people become almost emaciated if they don't identify a stopping point.
I agree with that too. Tell me a lifestyle that you're like, man, that one should have stuck, but it didn't. That one came and went so fast that it should have stuck around a little bit longer. Do you have one of those?
A diet pattern, you mean?
Fasting, or I'm trying to think what's been quick around, there's been a few, or maybe you're it's still in play, and this is, and I know not everything fits one, but probably portions is probably what you're going to say, but.
Well, that's always the answer, right? So but I think,
we had keto, we had paleo, we had whole 30, or, we've had a lot of, people's made a lot of money off of books and plans and all of that. Was there any that you're nah, that was legit, or the opposite? You're don't know how that even got traction.
Well, the best, if I'm giving a recommendation, all the diets, all the things, the Mediterranean diet, I'm sure you probably heard of it, is the best application to all the medical complications you could have. Really, it's plant-based, but not fully plant-based. It still allows for animal-based products. It teaches portions and control. It's higher fiber. It's got a nice a ring to the name, right? Mediterranean. People like that name. I think that has come and gone several times. Yeah. It's not the quick weight loss plan. And so it doesn't stick because it doesn't give that immediate gratification. So a lot of people will try it and be like, I lost a half pound in a week, so that's not enough. And so they don't do it. But for longevity, if you go to the doctor in 10 years and they say, hey, Evonne, you have high cholesterol and blood pressure, they're going to give you the Mediterranean diet. That's what's going to be recommended. So if I was saying if you had to pick one to follow for the rest of your life, I would pick Mediterranean diet just based on content. So I don't know if you're familiar, but it's lots of fruits and veggies, nuts, seeds, grains, plant-based proteins, but you also have other, fish and lean protein, but that's the best of them all, I would say, if I had to pick.
No, and again, Mediterranean's been, and I think Mediterranean is kind of almost similar to, is it the blue zone or the blue, they're saying it's in Arizona, Costa Rica, blue zone. I think it's the blue zone areas.
I imagine it's similar. Anything that's going to be more in a coastal region or
No, and I didn't want to spend a lot of time on the dietitian because there's so much more to you than just your career path and all of that. And it started, it's probably, when did you get the first skin or, biopsy from melanoma?
Yeah, 2021. 2021. So it's so interesting. I had a neighbor and her mom went to the doctor and had a mole in her toe and they cut her whole damn leg off. And so I was like, oh my, well, I think I kind of have high risk skin, so I should get checked out. So I went to the dermatologist the next day because I was terrified. And the person I saw didn't have me undress. They kind of looked at me and were like, you're fine. Sent me home. And so then a year or two passed and then I had this spot on my face. This was back in 2021 that was peeling. And I thought, oh, that's got to be lasered off or something. That's some kind of scar. And so when I went into this other dermatologist, I lit up like a Christmas tree. They did 7 biopsies. I had to do chemo on my face, 2 rounds of that. And I had 2 surgeries at that time. And those were both the severe dysplasia, which is right before melanoma. And then I've been going every 90 days since. And so just this last year, 4 times in 10 months, I've had melanoma and I just had another biopsy yesterday. So yeah, it just took off real fast. And I asked my doctor, I wear sunscreen. I wear hats almost every day of my life. You're lucky I'm not wearing a hat today. I always wear hats. But she said this has nothing to do with today. This has to do with when I was a kid, when I was at the pool, I was a lifeguard, I was a track athlete. So this is years ago damage happening right now. Just a little bit overwhelming.
It's the whole redhead thing too with, the fair skin. And I know when I was a kid, I remember coming home burnt as can be because I don't remember sunscreen back then. I don't ever remember my parents getting out a thing and I'm covered in white lotion for sunscreen. And it probably was. Maybe my mom was, my parents were naive on that or what, but it's crazy, how, again, the reason why I went down the clean eats path was because of a melanoma on the back of my leg. And, then mine didn't go, I got lymph nodes. And so they cut out 8 lymph nodes in my groin, on the same leg as the melanoma, thinking that it was going into lymphoma. And then I'm just like, man, life.
You've never had it back since?
I have had probably 2 or 3 more biopsies on my back and my arms, and one came back basal and then the other 2 were negative. And you got me thinking I need to go back. I went back every 90 days and then I got graduated to 6 months and then I got graduated to a year. And then I was like, oh, I'm good now, and yeah.
You should go back.
It's been probably 6 or 7 years. So I probably need to go back.
So what's wild is I go every 90 days and in 10 months, this will be my 5th time having what they suspect is my 5th melanoma. And she sees me every 90 days. It's kind of unbelievable actually that it's just all happening at once. And you're right. My mom's a redhead too, more red than me. And my dad was redheaded. So I come from all the redheads. And my mom is not a big shorts wearer, and one of her melanomas, she's had it multiple times as well, was on her knee, which doesn't see the sun. So that was 100% genetic. The doctor was like, this is all genes. So whether I'm in the sun or not in the sun, I think, unfortunately, I'm at risk.
Yeah. And that's, everyone always laughs at me because, when I quit, my x-ray position and moved to Wilmington, North Carolina to a beach, like, okay, so let me get this right. You had melanoma and you moved to beach. And I'm like, I know I get to look at it, but I'm usually pretty good about, I have an SPF shirt on. I have it just really sucked because obviously we were both in great shape. I know you're an avid runner and all that. And man, you work hard for that body. And then we have to cover it all
You're
up.
like a moo at the beach.
Like we got to be covered because of this damn melanoma shit. So, but
what's crazy is when I think back to when I was a kid, so back to the identity and like appearance and so on. I remember as a little kid being made fun of all the time because I was so fair skinned. I almost felt the need to conform and be like everybody else. And then I was a college cheerleader and same thing. Like they wanted us to tan. They wanted us to spray tan. They wanted me to match everybody else because I was the fair skinned kid, right? I was the different one. And I look back and I'm thinking like, I'm a bit bold in terms of my independence. So I kind of didn't care and I didn't just conform to everybody else. But I think a lot of people maybe would and feel the need to like hop in the tanning bed and be like everybody else. And I think back, thank God I didn't do that because had I done that, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today. But it is interesting how even in that scenario, I felt pressure to be like everybody else.
Yeah. I got made fun of all the time for being so pale. And I remember all the things because now self-tanning has came so far where you can just put it on and it looks so natural. It stays. But, I remember mixing iodine and baby oil to try to get my skin, just something other than white on there, and the things that I did, it just cracked me up. But because I don't think that I had my personality back then. I don't think that I knew who I was at that young of an age. And so being redhead, being fair skinned, like I let the bullying get to me a little bit. And I don't think I really found my voice until I would say it's almost my melanoma, when I quit my x-ray. So I was probably, because again, I lived that white picket fence life. I, went to school, I got married, I had the kids, I was in a marriage that I hated, but that's just what you were supposed to do, because of the Catholic religion that, was preached to me. And it was probably after that. And I'm like, the hell with all of this. I am going. And then I probably went so far, right, that I became
I was going to say, you got your voice when you were bodybuilding and it looked like you could kick everybody's ass. I would have had a voice then too.
Yeah, I just, so
nobody messed with you.
I think it's so cool that with that, you're like, I knew who I was at that age. And that's pretty strong.
I attribute that to all the strong women in my life. My grandmas were tough, super tough. My mom's mom was like 4'10", ball of fire. Her name was Franny, Grandma Franny. She was a big old fireball, but I attribute that to the strong women I grew up with. Cause again, there were no guys in my life. So it was women rule the world. That's all I knew. That's all there was. So, which is why when I met you, I was like, oh, I like her. She's a fireball.
I don't know if you would have liked me in that before that, but yeah, I was still trying to find my voice and find out who I was. Cause, so tell me, you have 2 daughters and they are both athletes too. They're all over the gymnastics mat and they're doing very well. They are very competitive. Tell me about being the mom and, obviously they have their dad in their life too. And how does that look different from your childhood?
It is very different. Yes. 2 daughters. They are 13. That's a whole bunch of hormones and attitude coming out right now. You've been there. So that's a thing. I probably deserve it. And then a 10-year-old, both gymnasts, very interesting, very different personalities. I'm a strong personality for sure. I'm certainly not timid. I'm bold. My husband is a bit more of a hothead. My 13-year-old is like her daddy. She is like the most cutthroat competitor there is. My 10-year-old is more of a lover. So she does well. She competes well, but she's kind of shy. This is funny. This happened this last season. Kinsey, my older daughter, she is she'll fight to the death. Like I said, she'll go head to head. my little one and her best friend tied on an event and they got to share the podium and they both got the same medal. And my older daughter was like, that's dumb. What's a tiebreaker? Why would you ever share a medal? Meanwhile, my little one thought it was the coolest thing ever to share a medal with her friend. So very different personalities, but yeah, it's different having, it's been an adjustment for me, to be honest. Having them have their dad in their lives is just so different for me. I have had to learn to integrate, like, I'm so used to me and my mom being so close, right? My mom, my brother and I being so close. So it's different for them. And I remind him all the time how lucky he is to be here and how lucky they are to have their dad. So if they're having conflict, I'm quick to be like, you guys are lucky you have each other. I play that card, but yeah, yes, very competitive. And right now, lots of hormones and attitude, which again, I probably deserve.
It just comes with it. And yeah, you're probably getting a little karma from somewhere along the way. But again, you don't want to kill their spirit either, because no one killed your spirit and you're like, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to get through this and keep them alive, because yeah, spirits are
I always try and say it's leadership skills. Like I tell myself, Crystal, these are some leadership skills. Let them be. Like, it's like, I'd rather have bold, strong personalities than like passive children who are going to get walked all over. So I tell myself this will serve her well one day. Not today, because I won this argument, but next time.
For me, but someday this will be convenient for her.
Yes.
What about, you've mentioned so many times that you're strong and, very women rule the world. How does that fit in your marriage? How do you find that you get to keep this bold personality and this, fire under you, but still maybe be feminine in a relationship?
That's tough. That's a tough one, because again, I feel like I grew up recognizing that a woman can be fully independent. So I probably have a bit of hyper independence in my genes. I think that's hard for men sometimes. I can't say that I've ever allowed a man to take care of me. I've never been taken care of. I feel like I'm not necessarily competitive in that I need to be dominant, but I certainly don't want to be dominated. So that makes for a complex relationship for sure. I think what works for my husband and I is we have identified our strengths. So he and I, our strengths in different areas. So I kind of take the reins with our girls and those kind of things. He's like the financial guy. Like when we first bought our house, he refinanced it to a 15-year loan. He did all these things. I'm like, okay, I just signed the paper and went along with it and, pay my half. But I think we just have to like kind of divide and conquer and know where our strengths lie. And they certainly lie in different places, but I can't say it hasn't made us go head to head before, because we're both pretty strong personalities. We also got married older. So he was 30 and I was 29. So we both had master's degrees. We both had graduated, from grad school. We both were already in our careers. And that's a little bit different than people that get married when they're 20 and they rely on each other. So neither of us rely on the other, which, makes us stay together because we choose it, not because we need it. And I feel like that's a little bit different kind of a relationship.
No, and I think the key is exactly what you said, is like the strengths, because we ask that a lot with Don and I, and we're just like, we stay in our lanes, and I mean, sometimes I'll merge into his, but no, he lets me know that I have merged and I'm not wanted in that lane. But, I think, again, like being a little bit older, you start to listen a little bit more. I think we're mature enough to know that we're not always right, and maybe 99% right. That
right. I mean, most of the time, but it was rare, but every once in a while.
Rare. But I think it comes with, like you said, maturity and I think life lessons that we learn a little bit. But there is a big thing going around with this soft girl era. And have you heard of all of this, to where
Tell me more.
Well, it's kind of like, all of the badass women are tired of being badass women, and they kind of want to like, just lean into their femininity, to their passions and all, which I'm not in that, but like I'm reevaluating some things, like I've worked this entire time. If I went away tomorrow, would I regret anything that I hadn't done? And I don't want that to happen, and I do want to have fun. I bought a book the other day. It said how to have fun. I mean, that's pretty sad that you have to buy a book to see how you're going to have fun, right? But What's your thoughts on all of that? Because you are such a strong female.
I mean, I certainly think in the last few years, I've had to like take some moments and recognize that I don't have to be so hyper independent, right? And my husband has reminded me of that more than once, that I just think that's all I've ever known. I haven't known any different. I've always known the woman pays the bill. The woman has to do all the things. I think I even teach my girls, like, never depend on a man. You have to be able to do it by yourself. I mean, I don't say those words, but I think they know. But I've had to reevaluate a little bit and like recognize, I mean, this is a team effort and it's okay to make it a team effort. And I mean, there's been times back and forth. I've relied on my husband or vice versa. Neither of us love it. It's like vinegar coming out of our mouth saying like, hey, I need you to do something for me. But I mean, I think as we get older, I'd like to retire one day. It's a few years out, but I think recognition of, again, I'm going to have to maybe reevaluate and see that it's okay to allow someone to take care of me or vice versa. It's interesting saying that from a financial standpoint, my accountant always tells me, it's interesting how my husband and I come together financially. He's like a big investor. Like he'll invest. And I'm like a save my money and don't let it change kind of person because I'm so conservative when it comes to it. But our accountant always tells us, you guys are like the perfect match. Because if there's an emergency tomorrow, you have money saved, but he's thinking about the long term. And so that was a recognition of like, we're different, but we really do complement each other well in certain categories. And that's a good example of that.
No, I love that. No, it's hard, being female, being mom, being a spouse. And, we have so many maybe mask isn't the thing, but so many faces that we put on, and I think that women are pretty powerful because of that, because we get to do so many things. We can be in pajamas today and be all grungy looking, but then put on a ball gown tomorrow and doll ourselves up and be a completely different person. And, we forget, I think sometimes how, I don't want to say lucky because I don't like that word, but how much versatile that we get to be versus a man. I always said, jokingly, like, when I come back in my next life, I want to just be a dude so that I can not worry about my belly hanging over or, like not have to shave or, all this makeup crap and all this. But right. Then I look back on it, I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't change being a female for anything because there's just so many levels that we get to partake in that I wouldn't change it.
For sure. I think about that with my girls, like I'm sure you do with your daughters. What kind of example am I setting? And even like talking about all the makeup and all the things and all the different roles. I hope that I'm setting a good example for them in all the categories. It is a lot to fulfill all those categories and to make sure you're doing it right in every single one of them. So I think about that often.
And then you're still a baddie doing all of it, right? Because that's important. But all right, what have I touched on everything?
I'm trying to think of all the things. One thing when I kind of looked at different topics we might discuss, one thing that I have said this several times when I've spoken for you guys, but I think one of the most pivotal career moments for me, honestly, was when I met your husband. I was consulting with UNCW and I was with Ben, strength coach. And I met Don and I asked him about his background and I was like, so you have a nutrition background or like, I hadn't met you yet. So in my eyes, he like had established a company. I then found out you're the boss hog. So I know now, I know better now, but, anyway, and he was like, no, he said bro science, man. I figured that all out the hard way. And so then we went to the cafe and we sat down and we ate. And I started running numbers on all the things that were in front of me. So I started from a clinical standpoint, I went to school for 7 years, I got 3 degrees. I'm like, okay, let me figure this out. And it was so refreshing to me that when I did the math, everything he put in front of me was exactly what I would have done. And so I think for me, I say that's a pivotal moment because I think it's so important for people to recognize that, lenses are different and paths are different. But I think we've ended up at the same finish line in terms of our perspective nutritionally. We got there 2 different ways. So you and Don, I feel like have the same nutritional perspective, but I have the same as you, even though my path was this academic, stressful, pay off my school loans way. But I love that. And so my students ask me all the time, what is something important in your career that has changed your life? And I think recognizing that you have to look through other lenses and you have to see multiple pathways to the finish line, I think is so important for me. And I see that now with a lot of my students because I teach 2 college classes. So I teach 2 courses at the University of Nebraska. And, students sometimes don't know what they want to do. And sometimes they stop school and sometimes it's just not for them. And, I think old Crystal and my rigid, like when I was in college, having to like do things all the rigid way, the real dietitian way. I think I just didn't recognize the ability to have lots of paths. And now with my students, I will say, look, there are lots of ways to get to the finish line. And if this isn't for you, if this isn't your path, that's okay. Here are some other ways. And so I tell that story to my students all the time. I said, listen, like we got to the same finish line. The numbers that I ran on the brand that I consult with are exactly what I would have done after years of school. And they just got there a different way. I think that's just so important because people get so rigid and think they need to follow this like very strict path. And that's the only way you can get there. So I've had lots of brands ask me to consult with them. I've been a dietitian for 2 decades. And so many brands have come to me and asked me to consult. And it's always been a hard no, simply because it was kind of like a fad diet or there was something about it I didn't believe in. But I looked hard and I could not find a reason to say no to clean eat. So I think that was really great for me. So kudos to you guys for making me
I did not know that. That's like the biggest compliment ever, to hear that. Again, like you said, that there's different ways. And I think from the bodybuilding world, and you might be able to comment, that we restricted ourselves so much. I spent so much of my time fantasizing about what I wanted to eat, And I think that's the biggest reason why most people fail with a healthy lifestyle is because they put themselves in such a huge box. And as you keep, losing weight, that box just keeps getting tighter and tighter because things kind of, to even get to that single digit body fat, things have to be down to the bite, down to the calorie. And there's so many people that are focused like that. Then you forget about, you miss out on a lot of opportunity. You miss out on like one of our biggest meals is the mac and cheese. Okay. Well, if we can cut all these down and we can put it into these numbers, like you said, then why couldn't we indulge and have a little bit of mac and cheese and so that we don't binge eat on a big case of mac and cheese? It's like giving those little things that you love and you fantasize about eating, but you restrict yourselves because someone told you that you had to make this, percentage of body weight or whatever. So that was the whole thing.
It makes me think of 2 things. One, I remember I would cut weight when I did powerlifting. And so, just like in like wrestling or other things, a tie goes to the lighter person. So I was going to have that advantage, right? So I would cut weight. And I remember sucking on like, gummy peaches, you know what I'm talking about? And I would suck the sugar off, but I'd spit them out. I wouldn't actually swallow them because I was too afraid it would make me gain weight. Like it got to a very dysfunctional point where like my need to control the situation was out of control. And that's, like I said, that's kind of how I chose my career path. Is kind of crazy.
Well, and I did the exact same thing when I was dieting. Like I would just fantasize about the food. And so I would chew and spit all the time to where I had like ulcers on my tongue because like I could sit and eat an entire can of Pringles, but I would chew, spit. And like it just, the acid from your saliva, you didn't realize it. And so there's just so many things that maybe don't get talked about, but are just as unhealthy as, the things that have labels on it as your anorexic and bulimic and all that. But there's things that we develop because you want that restriction so bad.
And for me, it was like gaining a competitive edge, which is why now working with athletes, I think it was the 1996 Olympics. They had a survey they did with the athletes, and it was something along the lines of, if you could take this supplement and it would make you win everything, and it was illegal, but nobody would know you were taking it, but it would kill you. Would you take it anyway if you won everything? And like over 50% of the athletes said yes. So working with athletes is a different kind of beast, or really anybody that is a competitive person is crazy. In my eating disorder career, I've had 9 patients die, which is overwhelming and obviously emotionally taxing. I've kind of stepped away. I still work with eating disorders, but I was like in the thick of it for an entire decade. And in that decade, I lost 9 patients. But my first patient that I ever lost, she was a college student and she was found dead in her dorm room. She died from like a cardiac arrest. But the reason, there were many reasons. She was like a very AAA personality, med student, like the very typical risk for anorexia. But her mom had a magnet on the refrigerator growing up that said nothing tastes as good as thin feels. And that was her trigger. That's what started it. It was just kind of wild that, going back to my daughters, you ask about my daughters. My older daughter is like the classic anorexia risk. She is super rigid personality, hyper competitive, high level gymnast, all the things that would lead to the risk for anorexia. And I watch them like a hawk. You know, it's terrifying sometimes to know that you have kind of that genetic risk, but I feed her all the things and kind of like you said, like Clean Eats, one of the best things about Clean Eats for me is certainly, and I say this to all of our customers and all of our owners, is that there is really no forbidden food. And that's the ideal situation, that anything can fit in moderation. And so that's, you know, one of the best things. And I have that same philosophy with my daughters. There is no forbidden food. They can have whatever they want. We just teach, you know, moderation.
Yeah. And I love that.
Yeah.
Well, it has been great catching up with you. And I'm so happy that our schedules finally connected, so that we could get this 45 minutes recorded with you. Anything final words or?
Yeah, I think we covered almost everything. I, like you said earlier, that you feel excited that I joined the brand. It's been one of my most fun career paths, and I can't wait to see what we do in the future together.
I agree.